Classic Restos is proudly brought to you by Shannons, where you can sign up to be a member of the Shannons Club, your local Holden certified service centre, Pace Farm the enjoyable egg, and Heron Forbes Machinery House, where you can buy online.
G'day, I'm Fletch. Welcome to the show. This is episode 1 of our trek across the United States of America with Mark from Shannons Insurance and this week's Classic Restos on the road, stateside. Right, with me now, no stranger to Classic Restos, Mark from Shannons. How are you, Mark?
Yeah, good, thanks, Fletch.
You're just off the plane from the airport. How was your flight?
It was good, actually. It was flying in direct to Dallas, Fort Worth. I hadn't done that before. Normally flying to LA, but it's a good way to carve out a bit of distance in the road trip.
It is good. You land in Dallas and you're already halfway across America.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the amount of driving we've got planned, it's not a bad idea.
Yeah. So we're in Jackson, Mississippi. Mark says, I want to see a battleship. I said, a battleship? What's that got to do with cars? Nothing, but it's mechanical and it's got history. So here we are in Jackson, Mississippi, ready for a 10-hour drive over to North Carolina. The battleship was 45 minutes back in the other direction. We're only going to spend half an hour there, and that blew out to about an hour and a half. It was the most incredible thing I have seen in such a while. The USS Cairo. Unbelievable, this thing. This ship was an ironclad ship built in 1861. The beginning of the American Civil War. It was serving as a river gunboat. In June of 1962, she captured the Confederate garrison of Fort Pillow on the Mississippi, enabling the Union forces to go and occupy Memphis. It didn't last long, it had a short life. It was built in 1861 and sunk in 1862 by a hand-activated mine. It was 512 tons in weight, 175 feet long, this thing. It was powered by 5 fire tube boilers out the back through one giant paddle wheel. It had 240 kilowatts of power in the metric term of today, and it could travel around 7 kilometres an hour. It held over 250 officers. Now bear in mind, we're talking back in 1862. It was sank in 1862, found in 1956 on the bottom of the Yazzo River. I think it's pretty cool that the state of Mississippi salvaged her. Apparently all the officers got off the ship in time. Some of their personal belongings were still on board, and everything was pretty well preserved from the silt from the Yazoo River. Absolutely amazing. I'm so glad we double back to see this and incorporate it into our trip.
Now, this gentleman beside me needs no introduction, but he's going to get one anyway. Mopar legend, drag racing legend, Mr. 4-Speed, Herb McCandless. How are you, sir?
Doing great, sir. Just really am doing good, having a good time.
The last year I saw you was 2016, and it's so great to see you again.
Well, it's great for you to be here. We've been looking forward to seeing you. We've kind of run into each other a time or two, but, not really.
We go back to Carlisle events, and of course that's a special place for you each year, isn't it? It's kind of holy grail stuff, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I've been going to Carlisle for, 15, 20 years, ever since they really started having the big Mopar show there. And and it's grown tremendously.
1965 was the year when you got into the drag racing. You were a printer. And you left that in 1968 to concentrate on drag racing more professionally. And also 1968, winning 38 races out of 52.
Right.
And then becoming one of the team drivers for Sox Martin. And that's just a few points of what you've done.
Well, I had some help from Chrysler. Dick Maxwell, who was the head up there of product planning. Dick, he really liked me, and he would ask me to drive different cars. Well, every time he asked me to drive somebody's car, I wanted it. So Buddy Martin decided I need to be part of his group.
Yeah. The car behind us on the wall, Herb, I guess it's something where you may lose your edge in time, but if you had an opportunity to sit back in that car again, take it down the quarter mile, could you do that today?
Not as good as I did it back then. As you get older, you lose your reflexes and stuff. And timing was so important with shifting the gears. The clutch had to go in and out in a split second. You had to shift gears exactly that split second, or you tore stuff up.
Yeah. Now, this is an amazing thing too. Known as Mr. 4-Speed, Herb's ability, the rhythm to clutch and change gear, and the rowing effect of rowing through the gears. Now, a lot of people couldn't do that. It was just the precision, and I guess you had an eye for this sort of stuff. You must have been incredibly quick on the clutch.
Well, I guess that's all I know to say. It was a rhythm thing, like you say. You got to the point you really didn't pay much attention to the tack because it was just timing and rhythm. Yeah. And Dick Maxwell asked me one day if I ever looked at the tack. I told him, yeah, sometimes. But, as long as I got the job done, he didn't care what I did. Well, it's a 63 Crown. Bought it in Los Angeles, California. I drove it home from California. It fought with me on the way back, but I won. And went through it and just fixed everything and put a 413 in it. It still got the transmission it had in it when I came home from California. I didn't do anything to it. Just changed the fluid and adjusted the bands. Torque flights, if you got an aluminum torque flight, if you'll change the fluid and adjust the bands every 30,000 miles, you won't live long enough to wear it out.
When I was a kid, I loved cars, still do. The 57 Cadillac Eldorado Brougham was the most advanced car in the world. Cost more than a Rolls. Hand-built with a stainless steel roof, cruise control, electric seats, and would you believe, air suspension. American iron. It's a passion Shannons understand. That's why they insure my daily drive, the caddy, my bike, even the house.
Call Shannons on 13 46 46. Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts.
When it comes to cars, there are some brands that will remain with us forever, no matter what. The Holden was always Australia's own car, held high in the hearts of many. Those lines, that chrome, the stories around them, and the people that owned them. From the classic through to the final, you can still trust in genuine Holden and AC Delco parts, available through the Holden Certified Service Network. Tell us a little bit about this room in here, Herb, where we're standing now.
Well, Michael, my son, put all this together. There's my 65 car and the 67 car, the 68 car. He's just kind of put a history of how I got with Chrysler and what happened with Chrysler. I got with them. They came to me in October of '64 and asked me about driving a Hemi 4-speed car. Yeah. And they just changed my life.
Yeah. Also, to the memorabilia as well. You see the little pieces there down to, cigarette lighters and tins, factory tins of lubricants back in the day, drums of oil. Well, I guess you've been collecting stuff for a long time, haven't you?
Michael is the primary collector of all this stuff, and he's gotten so big in this museum and the collection of everything, people will find stuff and contact him. Hey, are you interested in this? And if he is, he'll purchase it from him, and it winds up in here somewhere.
Now, you've seen a little of the first room that you walk through here at Herb's factory unit. There's a wall here, and there's just a standard door. It could take you through to a bathroom, but it doesn't. Have a look at this. what do we say? It just goes to show that sometimes things don't have to be pretty to be interesting. Now, Herb, I know this car is dear to your heart. 1965, 66 car, your first one.
Right.
What can you tell us?
Well, we found this car in a barn in Kentucky about 5 years ago. And it's the right car because it's got the VIN tag on it. And Michael Chrysler had a list of the VIN tags and who bought them, the VIN tag numbers. So Michael he put a reward out, and some guy called him and said, hey, we got that car. So we went up there and got it. It had been all cut up. At 65, everybody was making funny cars out of the things. And I had sold it to a guy that was running the car, and he had cut it up to make a funny car out of it.
So when was the last year that you saw it?
66.
How do you feel when you see the car sitting like this?
It hurts. I mean, I hate it. I would love that it was, still in one piece like it was, but Mike had already had the clone built, and so we just left it alone to show that that's it, because it's got the right VIN number and everything on it.
How many horsepower did you have back in the day?
We didn't know. Chrysler said 426 or 425 because that was for the government. But we were I know the first Hemi they ran on the dyno in Detroit, the dyno handled 500 horsepower. It tore the dyno all to pieces.
Well, the 426 Hemi was really one of the engines that had 1 horsepower per cube, right?
Oh yeah, it was over 1 per cube back then.
In a stock form.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But the Hemi just changed the whole world. Mr. Hoover was the backbone of that, and that engine just changed the whole world of racing.
I still can't believe you went from 1966 right through to 5 years ago, and you must have been often wondering, I wonder where my first car is.
Yeah, like I said, I assumed that it was the car that he crashed because that's what kind of the general consensus was. But it turned out that wasn't really true.
We all know that the A-bodies go. They all go. They're all powerful cars. But the A-body, the lightest ones in the group. And it wasn't until the late 60s where the A-body cars were finally being recognised as ultimate performance cars, weren't they? Right, they were. They were a much better body for racing. If you look at an E-body, they're short and low, but they're wide, and they tend to twist more. The A-body car is narrow and tall. It transfers weight better than the E-body car does. Now, apparently, Herb, this Demon was a great car from day one. Oh, absolutely. First pass I ever made in it, I ran Landy and outran him the first time I ever went down the track at it, and that just makes you feel good because we'd worked on this thing for about 4 months, 7 days a week. Yeah. I mean, we didn't take a day off. No, we worked from early in the morning to late at night, 7 days a week till we built this car. They delivered us a roof, 2 quarter panels, and a floor, and they said, here, build a car. Wow. And Gail Mortimer and I did every bit of it. I welded everything on this car myself, everything. That's amazing, Herb. And what sort of quarter mile times were you doing? We were running low 9s back then with the car, which was, I went for a stretch of about 3 months at 72 when I just didn't lose a race. I mean, everything was great. Yeah. And you always had manual cars? Do you just preferred the manual cars? Well, I always ran a 4-speed. Practice makes perfect. And we got much more practice than any of the other racers did because we made so many runs in the cars. And we were constantly making the car better. We were always looking for a little bit here or there or something, or find something to make it better, and that gave us an advantage. This collection here, it's beyond speech. It's a forward car collection here. It's one of the best in the country, possibly the world. And as a privateer to have this with your son Mike as well, it's an absolute credit to the both of you. I know you've been collecting for many, many decades. I do appreciate that. And it also reflects your success from a long time ago as well. And even today, I'm sure there's guys that call you, and I bet you're still helping people, yeah? I love to do that. I go to an event, I do seminars at Carlisle and some of the other events, and I tell people, if you've got a question about something, you can't do anything that I hadn't been involved in some way or another with Chrysler. And I really love to help people, and if you do it my way, not my way, Bill's way and Joe's way, my way, it'll work. Because I've been through all the wrong ways and straightened that stuff out. And what I really enjoy is when somebody calls me back and said, Herb, I did it just like you told me to, and it worked great. Yeah. When we look up stunning in the dictionary, there's a picture of this car. Now, Herb, you'll have to educate me a little here because this is a car, a Mopar you don't see very often. I know it's a 1959, it's a DeSoto. It's also extraordinary. Yes, the car has what they call a adventure-powered option, which came with the 2 4 barrels on it.
And I had never actually seen one until we got this one. Mike just got it not long ago.
Back in a time when badging meant so much on a car.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they had options, and they had little badges, like the 300 cars had the 300 with a D or E or whatever on them. And, Pontiac had their Bonnevilles, and everybody had a badge, a name.
So a 413 cubic inch car?
I think this is 361 car. Yeah, because DeSoto didn't have a 413. That was a Chrysler engine. Even though it was all the same basic company, they were companies within themselves. All the early Hemis, Dodge had a Hemi, Chrysler had a Hemi, and DeSoto had a Hemi, and nothing was interchangeable between them. Everybody thinks they're the same engine. They're not.
There you go. See, you never stop learning. This station wagon back in 1959, what an opulent family runabout. The type of person that would have bought this type of car.
He would have been a wealthy family man with some kids, because you got the rear-facing seat. You can put 9 people in the thing if you want to. And cars back then, when you saw them, you knew what they were. They all had a personality.
Yeah, and coming towards you, it's like as though they all had a different face.
Oh, yeah.
You knew what they were. Obviously, it's been restored to a flawless restoration. It doesn't matter where you look on this car. It doesn't matter what angle you look at it from. You can't pick any fault here.
Oh, no. This car is basically perfect. It's one of the nicest restoration cars. Michael found it. Family in Idaho had it, and he got this and a couple others from him when the gentleman passed away.
Just an era of bright work as well, where it used to differentiate paint. It wouldn't just change colour from red to white. It had to have a stainless steel trim there to do that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the car's got the trim. It separates it. You got the white stripe. And you imagine trying to paint that on an assembly line? I mean, that was a lot of work, because you had to paint it, wait for it to dry, paint the other. And, they just did things different back then. Cars, like you said, they were a work of art back then.
Yeah. And we say this all the time. It's almost like a scratch record. We know the late model cars are good. They've got to stop. They've got to steer. They've got to handle. We know all that. Yeah. And we expect that from a brand new vehicle. But when you go back more than half a century and you see a rocket ship like this and it's got incredible features, it just means so much more.
Well, what's neat, you drive one of these in a gas station, put gas in it, and you can't get out of there for an hour. You're there because it instantly draws a crowd. I don't care. If you go to the grocery store, you come out, there's people standing around the car.
And also, too, back in that time at the gas station, you would have had an attendant come out.
Oh, yeah. You didn't pump your own gas back then. They cleaned your windshield and checked your tires and filled it up with gas. And
you can remember all those times here in that era of the United States. They must have been glory days, Herb.
Oh, yeah, it was. I'm 80 years old, and so I lived through all the comings of the car, I guess you could say, from the mid-50s up. It was just a different time, a different world back then. And if you didn't have a good-looking car, you went to the movie by yourself. I mean, you had to have a good-looking car.
So, Herb, what year was it when you were hit with the Mopar stick?
Well, 1964, I was at the drag strip. I had a Z11 set up running modified production. There was a gentleman there who ran modified production at Plymouth. And I used to beat up him on Saturday night. We were friends. His name was John. That's all I really knew about him. He came over to me one night and he said, Herb, Chrysler's going to build these 65 Hemi package cars next year. They're only building 10 4-speed cars. I said, you can drive one of those? I said, sure, I can drive it. So I didn't know. So anyway, he gave me his card. He said, come over to my office Monday. I want to talk to you. Well, I didn't know what he did. I walked in his office. He's assistant regional manager at Chrysler's own office in southeast part of the country. And he helped me so much.
What an incredible opportunity for a young guy like yourself at the time.
He sent me to Detroit for school for a week where I got to meet Mr. Hoover and all of them. And he told me, so you meet those guys, you make sure they remember you.
I spend a lot of time out here. The RT Charger's the real deal. An E49. Remember A-Charger? I've always got projects on the go, so Shannon's laid-up cover helps protect my restorations. I'm Mopar through and through. It's a passion Shannon's understands. I wouldn't insure my cars and bikes with anyone else.
Shannons Insurance for motoring enthusiasts. Call 13 46 46 for a quote.
They may not be making the classic Holden anymore, but the legacy lives on. You can still have a Holden certified service using genuine Holden and AC Delco quality parts at over 180 centres across Australia. Go to holden.com.au to find your nearest centre. Book your Holden in, maintain the pride.
And of course, if you own a classic or two, make sure they are insured with Shannons. Why not pick up the phone and give Shannons a call for a quote and a chat on 134646, and the Shannons Club awaits you. Why not sign up to become a member of Australia's largest automotive online hub? For more information, visit shannons.com.au.
Welcome back here in Herb's incredible stable. Now, Herb, there's 3 vehicles behind us here that are incredibly rare. They've got a fantastic story. We'd like to share that.
Well, from what we understand, there's no proof of this, but we've been told that there are only 5 of these cars that exist. The 59 DeSoto Adventure convertibles.
And you've got 3 of them.
We've got 3 of them sitting here. Yeah, one of them's mine, 2 of them are Michael's. And we'll actually drive them. We just got them in not long ago. The gentleman that had 2 of them, we got them from his family. And they're just such spectacular cars. I mean, you look at them and everything about them is a work of art.
Mention some of the variations between the 3.
Well, basically the 3 colors, but they're pretty much the same car. You know, that was the Adventure package, 2 full barrels, performance car, you know, better torsion bars and stuff like that. And can you just imagine driving that down the street in 1959?
Back in a time when a person used to almost wear their automobile.
Oh yeah, your car was part of your personality. I mean, you know, it was just a different time. It really was. I mean,
your success was measured.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And if you had one of these, you were successful because they're pretty expensive cars. Cars back then were just absolutely works of art. And when you saw one of them coming, you knew what it was. Yeah. They didn't look like jelly beans. That's what these cars today look like. You can't tell one from the other.
Yeah, they've lost all their class, haven't they?
Right. They've lost their personality. Because cars back then, like I say, they had a personality. You know, that's just the way it was. It was great. It was the best time the country's ever had as far as the car world.
Ending today's episode, I thought we'd go out with this. A 1958 300D, a very cool car. It's got a lot of great history at Bonneville. Tell us the story there, Herb.
Well, Norm Thatcher carried this car to Bonneville to run it at Bonneville. And they just ran over everybody. I mean, he was just so much faster than anything that he was supposed to compete with, so there just wasn't any comparison to it. And, you know, this was back when you pretty much ran it off the showroom. I mean, they didn't do a whole lot to them or anything. This car has never been apart. You can actually get in and drive it. We drove the thing around here. The grandboys drove it quite a bit. They loved it. They thought it was really neat.
Looking down at the board there, 156 miles an hour.
Yeah, in 1958.
This is an incredible car. We've got a 392 Hemi, 2 4-barrel carbies. It's about the best that things got in 1958. We've got a storyboard there, and we've got photos there from the time as well. And you see the car up on the back of a truck sticking its tail out. I don't know how they got that off.
They owned some kind of vegetable type company or something. That was their delivery truck from what I understand. How they got the car off of it, I don't know.
It's still with its original interior as well. I love that.
This car is all original. It's never been apart or anything. It's just like they ran it.
It's never been painted either.
No, it's never been painted at all. It's had some touch-up stuff done on it. But the grandboys driving it all around town here when we first got the thing in, they loved it. They thought it was really neat. It's, you know, got the floor shift in it, the 3-speed in the floor. They didn't have 4 speeds then.
Okay, so this car's a manual, but in this same era, was the Torque Flight the cast iron bodied box?
Oh yeah, the 240-pound monster transmission they had up until end of 61. 62, they went with the aluminum Torque Flight. Yes. Oh, that was wonderful compared to...
Made life easy.
Oh yeah, the mechanics loved it, believe me. Yeah. You ever took one of those cast iron ones out?
But you were telling me earlier that they're a bit of work.
Oh, it's a nightmare. The converter has 8 studs sticking out the front of it. They go into the back of the crank, and you reach your fingers up in there and put nuts on them, tighten them with an open-end wrench. That's how you put the converter in. Then you put the transmission in the converter, and you got to wiggle the transmission to line up the splines. You got to wiggle a 200-pound transmission to line up the splines.
Herb, on that note, it's always been a pleasure, and it's so good after all these years to catch up with you again. And it was so good 10 years ago, and we've met many times. Thank you very much for today.
Fletch, you're welcome here anytime. You got my phone number. All you got to do is call me. I got the key to the door.
Thank you very much. That's wonderful. And also a big accolade to Herb's son, Mike McCandless, who a very enterprising fellow, and he's done incredibly well.
Oh,
and
unbelievable what Mike's been able to do. And Mike's the one put all this together. Yeah. I'm just the guy who makes all the cars run.
Yeah. I'll catch up with him some other day.
Okay, do that.
All right. Thanks again, Herb.
Thank you, Fletch.
Well, that is just some of the content so far as Mark from Shannons and myself make our way across the United States for 2023. The outstanding McCandless collection. A big thanks to Herb's son Mike for playing an integral role in getting this collection to where it is today, and of course featuring the man himself and absolute gentleman, Herb McCandless. I hope you've enjoyed it. There'll be more USA content coming your way on next week's show. Until then, no matter where you're watching Classic Restos from, please ride and drive safe. I'm Fletch. Thanks for watching.
You can like and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/ClassicRestosTV and watch catch-up episodes at shannons.com.au. Classic Restos is proudly brought to you by Shannons, where you can sign up to be a member of the Shannons Club, your local Holden certified service centre, Pace Farm the enjoyable egg, and Heron Forbes Machinery House, where you can buy online.